Susan here. Okay, we're going to continue making the perfect pant sloper, and that's what's next. Okay guys, so I was kind of the queen of pants, okay? When I worked for other companies, I really did a really good job and tweaked them. And when I had my own company, I also had my own, what I call perfect pant that I'm actually wearing right now. But I like to work with an existing pair of pant. But if you don't have an existing pair of pant and you just have your body and measurements, we're going to do it on a drafting method, but I'm going to also show you some tweaking that is necessary from the drafting method so it actually fits you. And guys, stop right now. If you have not seen video 1, part 1, with taking the measurements, stop what you're doing right now, go see video 1, meet me back here in video 2, and we're going to get started with the drafting, and that's what's next. Hey guys, we just have 2 more measurements that we have to get before we get started, and that is the crotch depth and knee location. I have my elastic back on my waist. I'm sitting up nice and straight. This is a curved chair, so I'm going to try to improvise, and I have 11, which is what I had on a flatter surface as well. 11 to 11 and a quarter. Perfect. Now we're going to stand up and do the knee measurement. Bend your knee a little bit, see where that knee location is, then go ahead and put your tape measure there. Stand up nice and straight and hold it up there where the crotch is, and I have about 12 and a quarter. Okay, let's get on the flat now. The supplies you're going to need for this project, you're going to need a piece of paper at least 30 inches by 31 inches. We're just going to go to the knee because that's all you're going to need for a sloper, and that's all I have room for. Your measurements: tape measure, pencils, paper scissors, 2-inch by 18-inch ruler, French curve, L square, hip curve. Let's get started. Let's get our vertical measurements first. I have the piece of paper here. I have my L square, and the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line vertically, and I'm just putting the edge of my L square here on the paper to draw that perfect perpendicular line all the way up. Okay, once you have that, I'm going to get where the waist is. 2 inches down from the top of the paper, just put your ruler there like that, and you get your 2-inch marking right there. Waistline. And you're going to do that high hip measurement. Remember, the high hip was 3 inches down. So from that waist measurement, you're going to measure 3 inches down, make a marking, and then go ahead and do that all the way across. Okay, that's your high hip. High hip. From there, we're going to do the full hip. So from the waist, you're going to go down 9 inches. That's going to be your full hip, like right there, and you want to measure the same all the way across. Okay, now we're going to do the crotch depth. Remember, the crotch depth was 11 and a quarter. So from the waist, I'm going to put that measuring tape to 11 and a quarter like that. And I'm going to make it all the way across. So this is full hip, and this is crotch depth. Last one is your knee length. So we're going to go from the crotch depth, and we're going to go ahead and do that 12 and a quarter right here. Put those measurements all the way across from the crotch depth. Okay. Okay, before I continue, I want you to know that these calculations will work for measurements of sizes about 4 to 12. Once you get smaller than that or larger than that, some of those calculations will have to be adjusted. Now we're going to get the hip. My hip was 38 inches. When you divide that by 4, I have 9.5. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to subtract 1/4 for the front measurement and add 1/4 to the back measurement. So my front will be 9 and a quarter. So I'm just going to go 9 and a quarter from here and put a marking. 9 and a quarter here as well. And put a marking. And on this side it's going to be 9 3/4, like this. Put a marking. 9 3/4 on here as well, and put a marking. Then I'm going to put a line there. I'm going to use my ruler for the measurement so that I can have it exactly perpendicular. So I'm going to touch one of the horizontal measurements to get that perpendicular line and draw that in. The same thing on this side. Okay. Carrying it to the top. There we go. I'm going to want to add 1/4 of an inch of ease. So not to complicate things, I'm just going to take my ruler and add that 1/4 of an inch of ease from that hip level line. This is going to be my new hip width. Like that. And now I'm going to take from the waist to the crotch depth, and I'm going to fold my measuring tape in half, and I'm going to want that measurement there. I'm going to put just a marking like that, as well as this side. There we go. Let's work on the waist first. Okay, just to let you know, this is the back part of the pant. This is going to be the front part of the pant. At the waist level, you're going to have to go from the back 3/4 of an inch in, and that'll be the new center back of our back sloper pant. Now my waist measurement was 29 inches. I add in 1 inch of ease, so it's 30. Divide that by 4, and you get 7.5 inches for both the front and the back. But I'm going to be adding 1 inch more for the front waist and taking away 1 inch for the back waist. Therefore, the front is going to be 8.5 inches. I'm going to put a little marking here. That's 8.5. And the back is going to be 6.5. So from that new back measurement, I'm going to go 6.5 inches like that. And that is going to be the side. Now we have to do the intake of the darts. I do not like to have 2 large darts. I only want 1 in the front and 1 in the back. So the front dart, I'm only going to give it 1/2 an inch dart. So I'm going to add 1/2 an inch there for my dart intake. And on the back, I'm going to give it just 1 inch. So there is the 1 inch there. Now we can start to mold the side hip measurements. We know this is a full hip. We know we want it to butt up against a full hip. So I'm going to take my hip curve, and I'm going to take that outer measurement, and I'm going to try to get a nice curve for my hip right here. And I'm going to go from there and to the full hip and do a curve. I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to give the back from that point on here. Here, I'm going to call that X. I'm going to call this X. We now have to connect that 3/4 of an inch in to that marking there. You don't want it to be too curved, but you want to just place your hip curve to get that nice shape. That's the start of your crotch, okay? And once you have that in, we have to measure that high hip to make sure it's correct. So from here to here, carry over the measuring tape from here to here, and we have about 18 inches. 18 inches times 2 is 36. We said that my high hip was 35. That gives me 1 inch of ease. Perfect. Now, what we're going to have to do is, I have a fairly large butt. And the larger your bottom is, the higher you're going to have to go on here. But I'm going to go to start with 1/2 an inch above where that waist measurement is. So now this is going to be my new back, center back measurement, okay? The front is going to go down 1/4 of an inch, just like that. It's going to dip down 1/4 of an inch, okay? Now we're going to put the dart intake. The front to the first dart, we're going to measure 3 inches. That's usually like where the princess seam is, right? So I'm going to put 3 inches, put a marking like that. I'm going to do the same thing in the back. It's going to be 3 inches, and that's where the dart intake is going to start as well here. We said we're only going to do 1/2 an inch dart on the front. I'm just going to go 1/2 an inch over like that for the front dart. On the back dart, I'm going 1 inch like that. Okay, from there, I'm going to get the halfway portion of this dart, which will be right here. I'm going to put a perpendicular line from the top line down. Here, I'm going to get 1/2 of that, which will be 1/2 an inch. I'm going to put a perpendicular line like that. Okay, the front dart, I'm only going to make it going 3.5 inches long. I'm going to put a marking like that. On the back, I'm going to go 4 inches down, just like that. From there, I'm going to put my dart legs in. So I'm going to go like this on the dart legs. Okay, this could go a little bit lower, but I want to make it shorter as much as I can. Now let's do the curve of the waist. We dipped it down here on the center front. I'm just going to take my hip curve and I'm going to go up to touch that dart leg, and I'm going to dip it down as well. So I'm just going to go up as far as I can here. So I'm going to keep it pretty much the same here on the side seams. And then we're going to curve this down from the center back to that dart, hitting the side seam like that. This is just rough because, like I said, we're going to tweak it. So now the new line so far, here, 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 and here. So the extension of the crotch we need to do, and that means we're going to measure from here to here. And half of that is what we're going to extend out. So I'm going to extend 5 inches out, which is half of the 10 right there. Here on the front, we're going to take that measurement and we're going to divide it by 4. And that's what we're going to extend it. It's about 2.5 inches out there, like that. Okay. Okay, now we have to do that arc. So I'm going to go 2 inches from this squared line up here for the back, and 1.5 inches from that squared point right there, like that. Now what we're going to have to do is put our French curve, and we're going to try to give you that crotch shape. This is where it gets tricky, and this is where we're going to probably have to do some changes, but I have that shape here. On the front, here on the front, I'm going to touch that X with this line here as well, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in for now. Like I said, I had a larger butt, and so I have a longer back crotch than I have a front. And we also said when I measured that it was a little bit hiking forward. That's fine. That's the way I like my pants. So what I'm going to do here, because I have to have 16.5 for the back, because my back crotch length was 16.25, I'm going to add 1/4 inch. I'm going to go down 1/2 inch from that line like that, and I'm going to measure with my measuring tape, going up from that heightened area of 1/2 inch above the waist, measuring, and giving myself like a little shape here until I get to about 16.5. So 16.5 is here and here. Now I'm going to take my French curve, and I'm going to fix that line like this. So there is my new back crotch. My front is supposed to be 12.25, so it has to be 12.5. Okay, let's get there. So I'm going to go from that drop line, right, 12.5. So I'm going to put it there, put my tape measure along that shape like this. And I have to extend it about that much more. So that's the front like that. So there is the front, and there is the back. Now I want to establish my grain here for the center of the back and the front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this width here like this, from the crotch to the side seam, divide it in half, fold my tape measure in half, and this is where I'm going to put my grain line seam. I'm going to do the same thing to the front. I'm going to measure that, fold my tape measure in half, get that marking, and that's going to be right here. Let's go ahead and put those in. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in like this, all the way down to where the knee level is. The same thing here with the back. Okay, that the knee was 13 5/8. You have to have ease, of course, and you have to have it so it falls good like a sloper. So I'm gonna actually do 4.5 on one side and 4.5 on the other side of the front. I'm gonna do 5 inches on either side of the back, like that. And then I'm gonna put a light line from the crotch to that line, that marking like that. And then here from the crotch depth to that light marking like that. I'm going to do the same thing here and here. We're going to tweak everything now. I'm going to go ahead, and I don't like this curve so much, so I'm going to actually go out 1/2 inch on the back, and I'm going to come in 1/2 inch on the front. I'm going to change that marking and that line there, and I'm going to change this marking and this line. Okay, I like the way that's better. Okay, now we have too much of an angle here, but remember how skinny I am underneath the crotch? That measurement was only, the thigh was only 22. This is a lot more than 22 here, right? We've got 27. So I'm going to try to tweak this out by putting this in about 1 inch here and putting this in about 1/2 inch here. Now I'm going to tweak this and put this in and curve this much more till I get to that knee, like that. I'm just going to eyeball it, like that. Okay, that's better for underneath there. I'm going to tweak this as well, not quite as curved, like this. Okay, now we also said that this angle was too far apart. What I'm going to do is just move that grain line over about 1/2 inch, like that. That means I'm going to move this over here about 1/2 inch and move this over about 1/2 inch. So here is my new line, like that. And this is my new side seam, like that. Why do I do this? Because the generic measurements for drafting is not incorporating the human being. So you have to eye it and balance it as you go along. All right, so I think I have what I want to have there now. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this out. I'm going to add seam allowance and I'm going to test it with the muslin. I'm going to be using the red line for my cutting. This does not have seam allowance. We're going to add it later. Okay, I have it cut out, and I'm noticing that this is too sharp of a curve here, so I'm going to take some of that curve out of the side front and the side back. I'm going to take that sharp point out. Now we have to make sure everything matches before we cut it out. I'm going to put the inside crotch together and walk the pattern, and it's perfect. The side and walk the pattern. It's a little shy here by about 1/8 inch. I'm going to cut that little sliver off like that. So here I am with the two pieces. I added 1/2 inch seam allowance. I cut it out of muslin. I did a little bit of clipping here for the dart. Now let's sew this together. There it is, guys. There it is. I just quickly put this together so you can see it's over my other pant. It's fitting like it's supposed to fit. All right, and that's how you make your perfect pant, with a sloper and with drafting, with a little bit of tweaking. If you have friends that are in school, out of school, just want the perfect pant, share this video with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.